And now may I continue with our third speaker, who is a past executive director of the Makati Business Club from the year 1987 to 2006. He served as EVP and Chief Operating Officer of the Ayala Foundation, and he is an Associate Director of the Ayala Corporation. Currently, he is Private Sector Co-Chairman of the National Competitiveness Council. Please welcome Mr. Guillermo Bill Luz.
Thank you, and good morning. Thank you for inviting me here to UAP to speak before you. I have a special attachment to architects and the practice of architecture, as my dad was an architect, and so we grew up around architecture, around buildings, around the practice, and around the profession. And so this is something I feel very, very strongly about. So let me start and speak a little bit about Philippine competitiveness. At the outset, let me just tell you that when we talk about preparation for ASEAN integration, it's all about competitiveness. If we are not competitive as a country, as a company, as a firm, as a professional, we won't be able to excel outside. In fact, we won't be able to even excel inside the country. We have to be competitive. For the Philippines, what are we competing for? Like companies, countries compete. We're competing for investments. In this case, we're competing for foreign direct investments, something where we are lagging at the moment, but catching up. We're competing for trade. In the case of the Philippines, we compete on two fronts: merchandise trade, manufactured products. We're reasonably strong here, but could be better. We are competing for trade and services. This is really the trade performed by people, whether onshore in the Philippines or offshore. We are competing also for our own people. If we are not a competitive country and we don't provide a competitive environment, our people leave. 10 million people have left, most of them not by choice, but out of necessity, because the country is not competitive enough to provide them jobs. We compete for other types of people, tourists. We are catching up very rapidly in this area, and I think people are just beginning to discover the Philippines as a great tourism site. And finally, we are competing for brand and image. Just like corporations, we have a brand, we have a reputation, we have an image. We need to communicate that and project that. And we haven't done a very good job of that in the past, until the It's More Fun in the Philippines campaign came along, and now that is beginning to get more traction around the world. So where are we in the competitiveness front? I hope you can read this on in the charts. We track at NCC, we track 12 global competitiveness reports. What you will see here is our ranking in the first column out of the total base. So, for instance, the IFC, Ease of Doing Business, we are now 95th in the world out of 189. We're plus 13 in the last year. We're number 5 out of 10 in ASEAN. And we're moving, our target is to be at 63 or better in the next 2 years. So we are a little ways off from our target, which is to be in the top third of the world. 4 years ago, we were in the bottom third of the world on almost all these indicators, and we have now moved up into the middle third for most of them. We have moved up on 7 of the 12, and we have made major gains in those 7. If we take a look at where we are in ASEAN, and this is the first area you need to look at closely, are we competitive? Are we ready to compete in ASEAN? If you see our ranking in the first column, you will see that most of the time we are now around the middle of the pack, 5th or 6th out of 10. I can tell you 4 years ago, we were normally at the bottom, 2nd to the last or 3rd to the last. So we have been able to move up significantly within ASEAN. But if you compare again to the other countries and we benchmark against all the other countries, Singapore, Brunei, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, you can see which ones are way ahead of us and which ones are behind us and which ones we hope to overtake. So the Philippines has made great headway. We have been recognized as the most improved economy in 4 major competitiveness reports in the last 3 or 4 years. The number that you see there, plus 53, plus 33, plus 49, plus 39, represents the number of countries we have overtaken for a global competitiveness report in these 4 areas. The Ease of Doing Business by IFC World Bank, the Global Competitiveness Index or report by World Economic Forum, the Corruption Perceptions Index by Transparency International, and the Economic Freedom Index by the Heritage Foundation. This is, I want to stress, the world's best improvement over the last 4 years. So why does competitiveness matter? It matters big time. Okay? First, take a look at all the countries that have been doing better in competitiveness rankings than the Philippines. Most of them have higher GDP per capita than the Philippines. But the real story is in the investments side. All the countries that have done better than us, that includes Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and not on this chart is Singapore, which is off this chart in terms of numbers. They have all done much better than us, 10 times better in some cases, or 5 times better than us in terms of the foreign direct investments they have attracted. Now, this is a bit dated up to 2012, and we have made some significant improvement, but we are still behind Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, not to mention Singapore, in terms of attracting foreign direct investments. So what does it all matter? What does the number mean? We're not chasing a number, we're chasing the outcome or the impact of that number. Our goal is to be able to move foreign direct investments to a much higher figure. And even in 2014, at $6.2 billion, we're still way behind Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, and Vietnam. However, it is running significantly higher than even what we had in 2011. Exports have also grown, but we are still well below the target where we feel the Philippines should be. GDP growth has also expanded. That's grown, and we'd like to make that average 7 to 8% a year for the next 10 years if we're going to make a dent in our poverty incidence and to bring development to the country. Unemployment has dropped slightly, and it's moving at its lowest figure since 1994. Poverty incidence, however, has not been anywhere near the target where we want it to be. So here we have our work cut out for us. And the middle class, the size of the middle class, which is the strength of an economy and the stability of an economy, is still far too small relative to the population. So this is what we need to strive for inclusive growth. We cannot hope to be competitive in an ASEAN economic community if we cannot get our house in order and make the country more competitive. So let me just run through quickly some data that we have gathered for you. First, on the Global Competitiveness Report, you can see where do we rank. Currently, number 52 versus the other countries, so in the middle of the pack. But in the far column on the right side, far right, you can see we're plus 33. We've taken the biggest jump in ASEAN. So we have caught up significantly in ASEAN, and we aim to continue this particular trend. This just graphically shows how we've had to play a little catch-up. We were actually, once upon a time, ahead of Vietnam, then we fell behind Vietnam, now we've overtaken Vietnam again. But we still trail Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. We are closing in on those countries and hope to edge into the top third in the next 2 years. In terms of the competitive landscape on the World Economic Forum, there are 12 particular areas that we look at in this index. Institutions refers to governance, and if you see all the way down, you see color-coded scores. If they're marked red, that means that we were in the bottom 20% of the world. We were among the world's worst. So in institutions or governance, as recently as 2010, 2011, we were in the bottom 20% of the world. Now we are somewhere towards the middle. Okay, sure. We'll move closer. Sorry, can you hear me now better? Okay, sorry about that. We're moving closer to where we want to be by moving all these numbers up. So once upon a time, we used to have 25 of our indicators in the bottom 20% of the world. Today, we've reduced that to 5 indicators. We want to reduce that to 0 and move everything into the black, which is above the median. And if we do that, you will see the whole competitiveness ranking of the country move up. Let me now move to the ease of doing business, which is all about the process of transacting with government. All of you, your firms, have had to get some form of permit from the government, whether you incorporated your firm or your partnership or your company, whether you get construction permits, electricity permits, had to register land or property, whether you had to go to court. These are all business processes in government which are actually measured on a global basis by the World Bank and the IFC. We were in the bottom third of the world. We were ranked number 148 in 2011. Today we're number 95 in 2015, and we want to move that up higher at the end of this year and into next year. So again, if you take a look, where do we rank in ASEAN? If we want to thrive in an economic community, we have to be strong and we have to be competitive. We have to be better than number 5. We used to be number 8. We're now number 5. You know, to be really respectable here, we have to be in the top 3. Now we're on our way there. We're plus 53 versus all the rest. And you can see what performance they've had in the last 4 years. This is a measure of, I said, what it takes to go through a government transaction. And just if you take a look at the first line, starting a business, how to incorporate the business, you can see where we're ranked. 161st in the world out of 189. That's quite low. Okay? That's quite low. We need to improve that. And you can see that in all the processes, 10 processes, we're able to see which ones where we are moving up and where we are moving down. In your particular profession, you are affected by things like construction permits. We do poorly here. Getting electricity, we're doing well. Registering property, not so well, though we've had improvements. So all of these things we have to push for reforms, for streamlining, for simplification. Let me just show you one example of what we've done recently for starting a business. In starting a business, it takes 3 steps in Singapore, 3 steps in Malaysia, 4 steps in Thailand, 10 steps in Vietnam, And until 2 days ago, 3 days ago, it took 16 steps in the Philippines. 16 steps. Okay? In terms of the number of days, it took 2.5 down in Singapore, and at its peak in Singapore, at its best, you can do this in 1 hour. 1 hour. For the Philippines, 2 days ago, it still took 34 days to get it done. 16 steps and 34 days. So what we've done from these 16 steps and 34 days is we've now reduced it effective April 15th. We've now reduced this to 6 steps and 8 days. This took the effort of about 6 different government agencies: the Securities and Exchange Commission, the BIR, Social Security System, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth, as well as your local government, to be able to bring this down to the 6 steps and 8 days. So it takes a great deal of coordination, collaboration among agencies to get it done. We signed an agreement with 12 government agencies 2 days ago to be able to fix several procedures, including this one. By next year, we need to bring this down to ASEAN standard, which is 3 days and 3 steps and 3 days. So if you go to our website, you will see the new steps outlined, and this has taken effect April 15th, so 2 days ago. Let me look at boosting local competitiveness, because I think my feeling is that not only do we have to be good at the national level, we have to be good at the regional level. And we have to start at home with building up competitiveness. And I think architects and the engineering profession have a big role to play here in terms of contributing to better urban planning of our cities. Why would we want to do that anyway? First, if we have more cities who are strong across the Philippines, we would diversify investment and job opportunities. We would also create new wealth, grow the middle class, and improve the overall attractiveness of the country as an investment site, because investors would have more options where to go rather than just Manila, Cebu, and Davao. We're 100 million people plus in the country, 7,000 islands. We need to be running on about 30 good cities, not 3 large mega cities and then everything is small and not moving. We need strong engines of growth. So what we've done is, next slide please. What we've done is we've created regional competitiveness committees all over the country, 17 of them. And they collect data for us from on how competitive a city is. So they collect data on economic dynamism, government efficiency, and infrastructure. And these 28 categories are broken down into subcategories, and we collect all this data and come up with a ranking of the cities. Let me show you what some of the rankings have been like. Last year, these were the top cities and municipalities for economic dynamism. These were the top cities and municipalities for government efficiency. These were the top cities for infrastructure and municipalities. And then these were the overall top cities and top municipalities across the country. I'm undertaking a similar study with a different set of variables for 27 cities in APEC, because this year we're the APEC host, and we should now be able to learn what makes cities in APEC competitive and how must our cities emulate those cities to become truly great, livable, sustainable, and competitive cities. But I can tell you, having been around, we need to have architects and urban planners help create these cities. We need to imagine the cities, design the cities, and help build these cities. Because our cities right now need a lot of help. They are really, from a planning point of view, most of them, Metro Manila included, they are a big mess. And I think you guys can play a role in fixing it. And if you do, then you'll really be able to step out there in ASEAN and compete with the best that they have to offer. This year, for our competitiveness indicators or competitiveness index for cities and municipalities, we will rank over 1,000 LGUs. 2 years ago, we had 285. Last year, we had 535. We will double the number because we want to find out which cities are ready to compete at a global level and in a global business arena. So we will be ranking highly urbanized cities, component cities, first and second class municipalities, third to sixth class municipalities, and then now the most competitive provinces. Here, again, I want to stress the need for greater urban planning and architecture in the cities. So let me jump to something that we have done and we started and we'd like to expand. Last year, we ran the Livable Cities Design Challenge. We set up this competition, a very simple competition to plan cities for a climate-defined future. And we told teams they needed to create cities which are fun, vibrant, and safe. One that we either want to live in, invest in, work in, or just visit. So we were happy. We invited 20 cities. 15 of them accepted the invitation. 2 categories. One for a government and evacuation center. One for an APEC meeting venue, since we are this year's APEC hosts. These are the winners and the finalists in the government evacuation center category. Cagayan de Oro made a design that won this competition, and for Iloilo, they made a design to win the APEC meeting venue competition. Not only the convention center, but the preparations of the city for handling APEC meetings. So let me jump a bit to Philippines and ASEAN and why I think we actually have an advantage if we opened our eyes to the advantage and really aggressively moved in that direction. The first is take a look at the population. We have the second largest population in ASEAN at over 100 million people now. It's not only the second largest population, it is probably the largest population of English-speaking people, and certainly, I'm convinced, the largest population of English-speaking professionals. That's a huge advantage we have, and I think we are not taking enough advantage of this one. The second is a matter of age. Okay? In ASEAN, we already have among the lowest median ages in ASEAN at 23 years old, but we also have the highest proportion, among the highest proportion of people at 14 and under as of 2012. These people are just entering working age in the next few years, and so this means for the next 30 or 40 years, the working age population of the Philippines, that means between 18 and 64 years old, will be among the highest proportions of a population in ASEAN. This means we will have a workforce not only for manufacturing and services, but for the professions as well. However, we must educate them, we must keep them healthy, and we must train them. They are either going to be a huge disadvantage or bomb for all of us. It'll be a disaster if they're uneducated, unhealthy, and untrained. But they will be the biggest asset we have if they receive the right education, proper health care, and training. So this is for us to look at closely, because this is our secret weapon in ASEAN. It's centered around education and training. So the challenge is, even with all these numbers, we have the worst figure, I think, or second worst figure for poverty incidence in ASEAN. So this goes to show you that what can happen if we don't do things right for the country in terms of our population, both an asset and a liability. I don't want to go through too much of the ASEAN mutual recognition arrangements. I think you've gone through that. Let me just say, let's skip towards the end to the lessons. Let me just say that I'm a bit surprised that we don't have more professions or professionals registered in ASEAN. I think that relative to our population and our population of professionals and English-speaking people, I know that we have some 40 ASEAN architects in the Philippines, but I think we can do much, much better, personally. Not only because of the skills that we have, but the sheer numbers that we have. But let me tell you that I think our strategy for moving overseas in terms of mobility of labor and trade in services should not be a strategy of individuals moving across borders. The strategy should be of firms moving across borders and getting work as firms, or merging with other firms, or acquiring other firms, or working in joint venture with other firms. This applies to both the corporate level and the professional level. I think moving as individuals will just pit us at a field, at a level that it's going to be difficult to compete. But if we compete as firms and if we combine as larger units, we stand a better chance. So I do think that we are punching under our weight as far as the numbers of people that we are registering under the ASEAN MRAs. But let me get down to my core message, which is, if we want to excel in an ASEAN economic community, we must be competitive from the beginning. Competitive at a national level, competitive at a regional level. Without it, people will come in, take our markets. We won't be able to go out and take other markets. So what lessons have we learned from all of this work that we've done in NCC for the last 4 years? Number one is that governance matters. This one we have seen. It's measured in many competitiveness reports. It is recognized. It's a key indicator even for credit rating agencies and certainly for most major companies. Transparency leads to competitiveness. The second is that work in progress is not good enough. It's not worth anything, in fact, in competitiveness rankings. If someone tells you it's work in progress, that means the work is not yet complete. And until the work is complete, we don't get our ranking, we don't get our rating. Execution and delivery is everything in the competitiveness business. We don't get credit for scores or achievements until we have final execution. And execution here does not mean a law or an executive order or a piece of paper. It means execution, implementation, and measurement. If we can't provide the measurement, we don't get the credit. Teamwork is required. Like in professions, like in businesses, the country needs teamwork. And when we showed you the reforms we put together for incorporation and starting a business, it could not have been done by a single agency. It required 6 agencies to work as a team to get it done. So we can't have any silos. We need to work in teams. We need to focus on multiple fronts. The country has a lot of problems, so we can't just fix one problem and hope the whole country improves. We have to fix many problems. And if I take a look at your profession, where we could use your help, we need help everywhere. Infrastructure, airports, ports, rail, mass transit, you name it, we need it. We need to get people involved in fixing all our multiple problems. They are the multiple opportunities for us. We have to remember this. In fact, never forget it. The competition never sleeps. It's very tough to maintain your ranking and to move up in global competitiveness rankings. 190 economies are being measured. At any given time, more than half of them are moving and improving to do something in their country. If we stand still, we fall back. Competition never sleeps. Even number 1 Singapore never sleeps, ever. The bar always rises. When the country moves up in competitiveness rankings, that means we work against tougher countries and stronger countries. So just like in boxing, there's a weight class. For countries, it's your ranking or it's your GDP per capita. The higher the number, tougher the competition. Speed to reform should be our mantra. We have, I don't know if everyone knows that we have a change of administration in just over 1 year, 13 months. In fact, we are roughly 12 months and 2-3 weeks away from a national election. So just think of all the things we need to get done to make sure that we put these reforms and cement them in place. Speed to reform has to be our mantra. We need to maintain momentum. We can't afford to move at the same speed or slow down. Others will catch up or overtake us. We need to continue acceleration. Finally, we need to embed and institutionalize change. We can't afford to put a fix today and then slide back tomorrow. We need to make everything permanent. And finally, we need to work together, public and private collaboration. The teamwork I spoke of is not only in the government, it's not only in the private sector, but more importantly, it's between the government and the private sector. At the NCC, we are 50% government and 50% private sector. I happen to work for the private sector, but full-time seconded to the government. So I've seen the teamwork and its impact and the results that it can bring. So I would encourage all of us, continue the public and the private collaboration, and let's make a better Philippines. Thank you and good day.